Well, hello and welcome everybody to episode 5 of our webinar series. This is called Bridging the Gap, Indigenous-Led Clean Transportation for Saskatchewan's North. This is brought to you by Aurora Renewables and English River First Nation in partnership with Natural Resources Canada. I'm Mitch Carlson, and once again, I'll be your host for today. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that many of us are joining from the ancestral lands of the Cree, Saulteaux, Nakota, Dakota Lakota, and Dene people, as well as the homeland of the Métis in Saskatchewan. If you are new to this series and have missed our first 4 episodes or would like to re-watch any of them, you can find the recordings on Aurora's YouTube channel at the link shown here on the screen at YouTube / Bridging the Gap EV. Included in there is one of our most popular videos to date, based on YouTube views. It's episode number 3, where we received an EV 101 presentation from Kenneth Bokor. So we've decided to bring him back to our program. So Kenneth is the creator, producer, and host of the EV Revolution Show YouTube channel, where, among other things, he takes viewers along for the ride as he test drives electric vehicles in Canada. Joining Kenneth is Behzad Mohajer, founder and CEO of EVSearch.ca. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you, Mitch.
Thanks for having us.
So to kick things off, I'll just have you both talk a little bit about yourself and your respective organizations. And Kenneth, because you are our returning guest, I'll start with you. So I'm just going to stop sharing, and if you've got anything to share, feel free to throw it up on screen here.
Great. Well, thanks, Mitch, and welcome everybody. Yes, as introduced, I run a YouTube channel called the EV Revolution Show. I'll just share that webpage for a sec. It's easy to find if you do a search. I also do audio podcasts. They're available on most audio players that you have, whether it's in the car or in your phone or on your laptop. You can search EV Revolution Show audio podcast, where I interview people from around the world about things in the electric vehicle market space. And my take is just basically to help educate consumers about electric vehicles that are available and how they can perform here in Canada. So thank you for that.
All right, thank you. Now, Behzad, I'll pass it over to you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, why you created EVSearch.ca, and maybe give us a little high-level overview of the features of the website before we dig a little deeper into some of it.
Sounds good. Yeah, so Behzad Mohajer, I'm the founder and CEO of EVSearch. My background, like by education, is a mechanical engineer, and by experience, I worked nearly 10 years as a hardware design engineer for electronics industry. So for me, cars, or EVs, are not just cars. It was an integration of different technologies into one platform. So my interest came from that point. And then the idea behind EVSearch, basically a few years ago, when we were observing more and more EV models entering the Canadian market, what was interesting to me that people didn't know much about these new models, and they only knew about like a couple of well-known brands, and then the rest were just unknown. And then there was no such platform that have all these models in one place. So if you wanted to search, you had to visit multiple websites. You had to create your own Excel sheet to basically gather the information. The information was fragmented on multiple websites. Dealership website and manufacturer websites, sometimes they are biased towards about the values that they present. And some of the traditional legacy platforms, like digital platforms, they've been designed specifically for internal combustion engine vehicles. So their platform and the template of their platform has been designed for gas vehicles. So, and when electric vehicles showed up, it was just a new filter or a new category without introducing or without showing enough information, like this EV specific information that EV buyers are actually interested in, and the concerns that EV buyers are they have about electric vehicles. So I thought it would be nice to have a platform, like a Canadian-based platform, that has all the electric vehicle and plug-in hybrids that are available in Canada in one place, having all their information in one place so people can explore them, see what's available, what's not, and then they can compare them side by side. And then another factor was to provide some general knowledge on EV ownership. So we've been driving, or we have been driving gas vehicles for years and years. And we know about how these cars or ICE vehicles work, but electric vehicles are something new to people. So it needed some education to provide them with this general knowledge of the EV technology, how the battery works, how the charging works, the charging options that they have, general cost of ownership. So these are the elements that we wanted to include in our platform, and we worked with the team, and now we have EVSearch.ca that we think it's almost a complete database of, I say almost, we don't have everything, but we try to gather all the information, and we try to bring all the information in one place. I can share my screen and I
Yes,
can
please.
show how the platform looks and then different modules on this platform. So this is the homepage and different categories that we have. We have, first of all, we have a database for EVs and PHEVs. So we have an electric vehicle model database. We have a plug-in hybrid model database. And recently, in the past few months, we have this popular Chinese electric vehicle database. So if you go through each of them, for example, for electric vehicles, we have all the models available, and then you can filter, you can sort based on your driving needs, based on what you are looking for, based on your lifestyle. You can go through the filters and you can sort, and then you can find the vehicle that is of your interest. So we have a database for electric vehicles, we have a database for plug-in hybrids, and also we have this database for Chinese electric vehicles. And each vehicle that you are interested in, so it comes with a photo gallery, a high-level view of the specs, sorry about it, a description of the vehicle, a table with technical specifications. So it has different trim levels of this vehicle with the pricing, range, charging time, all the important factors that an EV buyer is interested and they want to know. Then on top of that, we added some other modules, some educational module to the platform. So for example, we have EV School, and in EV School, we provide general knowledge on EV ownership, and it's about EV technology, how they work, different charging options, charging at home, charging in public, fast chargers, different plug types, cost of ownership, a little bit about maintenance, a little bit about the incentives and financial rebates that are available in Canada. Autonomous driving, some information, general information about autonomous driving and what to expect that's coming. And we have some tools that help people to basically narrow down their options. So before they even go to a dealership to test drive, they can gather the information, they can compare their vehicles that they are interested. So we have this comparison tool that basically any vehicle that they can go through the list, they can go through the database, and any vehicle that they are interested, they can add it to this table, and then they can compare them side by side. So we have a compare table for plug-in hybrids and then a compare table for electric vehicles. And we try to make it user-friendly, so we color code the table so you can easily find out, for example, for range, out of the options that you selected, which one has the best range, which one has the worst range. Same for price, same for power, for charging time. So it gives people a view of the options that they are interested in, and then they can narrow down, and after they know enough about that vehicle, then they can go to a dealership and test drive the vehicle. And we have this option available. So if any vehicle that people are interested, they can request the test drive here, and then we connect them with a dealership in their neighborhood that they can go and test drive this vehicle. Another tool that we added to the platform that we think is useful, especially for the Canadian audience, is how much does it cost to charge their EV? And so many people, they rely on their home charging. Many people, they charge their vehicles at home, at work, in public places, in a mall. parking spots, and also many people, they use fast chargers. So it gives you, based on your vehicle model, based on the province that you live, and based on your battery basically state, it gives you how much you should expect for charging costs for the vehicle that you are interested in. So this is a brief overview of EV Search, and we can talk about more details like later on.
Great, perfect. Yeah, it looks like a fantastic resource for people that are getting into EVs and wanting to learn about it, but also those who are shopping for it and want to try and make the best decision without having to run around to a bunch of dealers at first. So, Kenneth, I want to go back to you just with a question. And it's kind of, I guess it was prompted when I saw the big list that Behzad showed here of all the EVs. When you first started, how have things changed from when you first started your show compared to now, both on the number of models available and the performance specifications that have changed? So maybe a little bit of history of what people can expect, because I think people are surprised by what EVs can offer now, and they might have an image of what things were 5 or 10 years ago.
Absolutely, yeah, great question. I started doing my channel in 2018, started covering the market through another source as well in 2016. And in 10 years, we've seen just phenomenal growth, as to be expected with any technology-driven market space. I mean, electric vehicles are basically becoming, if they're not already, computers on wheels, for lack of better visual. They have so much technology in them, but they're such a simplified platform in that skateboard platform that the technology is such a benefit because you can invoke so many features and benefits on those vehicles with that technology versus the constraints that gas vehicles provide in the way that they're built and the technology that they use. So since 2018, I started a list of vehicles in Canada, just all electric. I started tracking, and in 2018, it was about 15 or 20 lines long. Now it's over 250 lines long of models and trims of vehicles, ranging from just under 40,000 Canadian to over 300,000 Canadian. And I'm sure there's some that I might be missing that are even more than that. But it's a phenomenal growth in not only the way the technology has changed, but the value, as you asked, Mitch, is certainly probably 3 or 4 times more than it was just a short 8, 10 years ago. When EVs started coming out in 2010, 2011, 2012, the cost of battery packs is and was still the main cost for those vehicles. It was about $2,000 a kilowatt hour, but just throw those numbers out there, US. Now they're sub $100 US per kilowatt hour. So you can see that the technology costs have come down so much that the Nissan Leaf in 2010 was $42,000, 40,000, and it was, slow charging and 120-kilometer range kind of vehicle. Now for 42,000, you get something that's 480 kilometers of range with much faster charging and much more technology in that same price point, if not even less in some cases. So it's really a win for consumers. And the biggest challenge early on was the lack of choice. Now we have choice from small to large sedan, hatchbacks, pickup trucks, SUVs of all kinds of sizes, and even electric vans in some case for short mile delivery for commercial applications. And of course, the trucking and all kinds of other sectors are expanding their use of electric technology as well.
Right, great, thanks. And with that now too, I assume that because the market is maturing, there are a lot of now used vehicles becoming available, EVs. I myself bought a used EV as my first electric vehicle, and happy to say that we've had zero issues with it, and we've had it checked out by the dealer, and battery status they said was very healthy. Um, Bizat, does your tool talk a little bit about used EV sales? I know it's kind of focused on maybe purchasing new, but is there anything that you can show us about tools for the used EV marketplace?
Yeah, so our database is currently focused on the brand new vehicles that are available in the market right now, but we have a used vehicle marketplace in development right now that hopefully we can launch in a couple of months. But that's very important. So I myself just bought a used electric vehicle recently, and like it's way more affordable, and they live long. So it's now like the used EV market is now entering a very important growth phase, and the early EV adopters now are selling their EVs, and now there are so many used EVs are entering the market, and now with the new battery technologies, with the new battery management systems, like these batteries last for a long time. And I understand that as somebody who purchased a used vehicle, a used EV myself, like one major concern is the battery health, because these vehicles have a battery and an electric motor. Like that's basically it. Electric vehicles are very simple systems, like as compared to internal combustion engine vehicles. So yeah, battery health is quite concerning for some people, and that was the first step that EVSearch wanted to like before entering the used vehicle marketplace. We wanted to show people that it's not that bad as they think. Like battery health is much better and they last much longer because this battery technology is improving. So what we developed a battery health estimator. So for EVs, you can if you have an EV in mind, you can estimate the battery health based on the EV model, based on the mileage, and based on the city that you live in or that vehicle has been driven in. I can share that tool as well, and we can play with it, and then I guess the audience can see that like even for long ranges or for mileages or for a little bit older vehicles, the battery health are still like above 90% after 5, 6, 7 years, and even beyond that. And if a vehicle at original range, it's like 450 kilometers, after 5 years, it's only 400 kilometers. So it's not that bad. It's like way more than what people need daily for daily commute. So if you don't mind, I can share the battery health estimator so people have a look
Yeah,
and see
absolutely.
how.
And as you're doing that, I just want to remind audience members to feel free to ask any questions. Please drop them in the chat function, and we'll try to get to them as we go. And we'll also have some time just at the end of the session if you want to ask questions at the end. But feel free to post anything in the chat at any time. Thank you.
Yeah, so generally the battery degradation is influenced by different factors: the age of the vehicle or the age of the battery, the mileage that's been driven, the driving habits, the charging habits, the climate or the temperature that the vehicle was exposed to, and the battery chemistry itself. So we developed a physics-based model for estimating the battery health based on these factors. So these tools, basically, you can select the vehicle that you are interested in. So for example, a Kia EV6 from 2022, long range, rear wheel drive with 60,000 mileage. So you can select the vehicle, you can select the city that you are in. For example, uh, let's
Let's go
select,
Saskatoon if we can.
yeah,
Okay.
Saskatoon here. So this is the average monthly temperature over the past 10 years in Saskatoon. And so we take that as the temperature exposure for that battery. And then based on what percentage of the charging was done with DC fast charger. And so basically most people do the charging at home or at work with level 2 chargers. But if they're using fast chargers more, it degrades their battery a little bit more. If they less use fast charger less, battery tends to last a little bit longer. So they can select roughly what percentage of their charging was done with a fast charger, and it instantly gives you the state of health of that battery. So for example, this Kia EV6 with 60,000 kilometer of mileage, it's still at 91.1% of battery health. And based on our modeling, this is still a little bit conservative. So the actual battery health is likely a little bit better than this. So we tend to be a little bit conservative. But it means that this vehicle that originally has about 500 kilometers of range, now it's 455 kilometers. So we lose something about like 45 kilometers out of this out of the total range after 60,000 miles. And so if people are interested in used EV and they're searching for that, and if they're concerned about the battery health, first of all, the best way to get an estimate or to get the battery health is to test it. It doesn't cost much to test the vehicle at a certified shop, maybe like $100 to $200, maybe less, depending on the charge. So I totally recommend that. It's worth it. But even if they are in the research phase and they just want to get a sense of roughly what's the state of the health of that battery, they can use this tool and it gives them a good estimate of the battery health. And and when I see these numbers, it gives me more confidence that okay, I can trust a used EV and I don't need to worry about the battery health. I'm worried that tomorrow the battery goes dead and then I have to spend like $50,000 or $10,000 to replace the battery. So information like this can empower people to basically embrace the electric vehicle. If they cannot purchase brand new, it's expensive, used vehicle are way more affordable and they can embrace it.
Right. Perfect. Yeah, it sounds like a great tool to, like you said, at least provide an estimate for people. I know when we bought, we didn't do a battery test on ours initially. We ended up getting one afterwards, just more out of curiosity. And our service shop at Kia said that it was actually still at 100% and we were at 45,000 kilometers.
Yeah,
And they said, "Don't ever sell this vehicle," kind of thing, right? And then, of course, then the salespeople come over and try to sell me on a brand new one. But yeah, pretty good confidence in our vehicle. We're, like I said, we're super happy with it. We It's rated for 405 kilometers range, and we've definitely got that in the summer times for sure.
And I
Um,
just want to add, Mitch, on that that tool is great, by the way, Bazad. I love that you've done that, and it definitely gives you a degree of accuracy. Again, you can play with how that is charged. Now, obviously, you may not know how that vehicle, if you're buying a used vehicle, be it a website or a smaller dealer, they may not know how it was charged either. So you can go in when you do that state of health report, and it does zero into things like charging cycles and how some of those cycles have been, whether it's been level one, level two, level three. Most BMSs capture all that data. So to your point, that if you go to a qualified shop, be it a dealer or a reputable shop that will provide you with that state of health information, they should be able to pull some of those numbers as well to see how it actually was charged in its use case. I would caution the viewers, the listeners today, that if they're looking at a used EV and that seller or that dealer does not want to provide a state of health report, then I would question that. Because EVs are different, as you heard Behzad talk about. They're a very simple platform. There's about 20 to 25 moving parts in these things. So there's really not a lot that needs to be maintained beyond your traditional brakes are same. They're hydraulic brakes. Your suspension's the same as normal cars. If bodies rust, if there's holes, you can see there's those things you can visually check as you would do for any safety certification process if you're buying a used vehicle. But beyond that, there's not much else. So the state of health report is a very key element to shopping for a used EV, and I would encourage again anybody in that to get one
Great. Well, that leads
or ask for
into
one. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. That leads into an audience question that we have here. So we've got Sherry asking, wondering if about other repair stats and information. She said she's concerned about getting a car that needs to be repaired and may only be repaired at dealership only. That could be 200 kilometers away. So this brings up a couple of things I guess we could talk about is one, general maintenance on an EV, with Kenneth, you just kind of talked about, and maybe we can compare that to internal combustion engine about what could go wrong, maybe warranty comparisons, things like that. But also, yeah, about dealership or aftermarket service. And maybe if we can, I know neither one of you are from Saskatchewan, but maybe in the context of Saskatchewan where the market's still emerging and maybe there isn't as many dealers or service people around.
Who do you want to go first?
Go ahead. I'll start with you, Kenneth, and then
Okay.
Bazad, if you've got anything
Yeah.
maybe in the tool, or whatever that you want to show, or chime in. But go
Sure.
ahead, Kenneth.
It's a great question, Sherry. We get asked that a lot. So, as I mentioned, and as you've heard, EVs do have a simple platform. There's not much really going on from a moving parts perspective. So, major maintenance is few and far between. Now, things can certainly fail. There's no doubt about it. They're man-made products, but for most of its life, there's nothing really major to do. The most common type of maintenance on an EV would be things that would be wearable, things like brakes and tires, as an example. There's no oil changes, there's no HVAC system really flushes to do, transmission flushes, things like that. There are some fluids that are used in EVs, like a coolant, which are usually in a single loop, where the coolant cools and warms the battery pack as well as deals with the HVAC system in the interior for the occupants, and most EVs are using heat pumps as well for efficiency. So there is some mechanical parts there, but very few and far between flushes. So if I would say that in a new EV, you've got a comprehensive warranty of most vendors are offering 8 years, 160,000 on the battery pack and the powertrain systems. For the battery pack to not drop below roughly around 70% seems to be most common figure. Some go to 66%, but that seems to be standard. I see a lot of OEMs now offering extended warranties that you can purchase as well on new vehicles beyond that. So to extend that lifespan, we bought a used key as well, and we added an extended warranty to it. They were able to offer one, so that is depending on the vehicle type that it is and the manufacturer. So you can do that. The vehicles themselves usually have a minimum 3 year 60K, 4 year 80, sometimes some are longer, bumper to bumper cases as well. So the dealer would rectify any issues in those matters. Beyond that, routine maintenance, again, tires you'll go through a little quicker because of the weight of those EVs, and people do tend to like to play with the instant torque and instant horsepower that's available on EVs. They get used to it, they get hooked. So that can wear tires down a little bit, but that would be one thing. But are all over the place from an availability perspective, as long as you get tires that are rated for EVs, that are EV tires, but they range from $200 to $1,000. It depends on the brand and the tire that you want. Beyond that, if there is something that's more comprehensive, that you may need to take it to the dealer because they may be the only one within your region or area that has the expertise to do the diagnostics. Now, we are seeing more and more mid-sized garages or chains develop expertise in EV troubleshooting, diagnosis, and repairs. For example, I know OK Tire, some of their chains have service guys that are trained on EVs. They can't fix a battery, but they can do everything else. They can replace the motor, they can replace the fluid that is in that coolant system. They can do the brake work. Of course, they can do the tires. So that might be available to you in a more local fashion. There might be some expertise in that area. I would just again summarize that the amount of maintenance on an EV is much lower. Not to say something could not happen, but the chances of a major failure, like a battery pack failure or a drive motor failure, are very, very low risk. Behzad, do you want to
Yeah, just to your
add some
point,
more
I
stuff?
just wanted to add one thing is that the cost of maintenance is a feature of EVs. Like it that's one of the reasons that we should buy EVs because it's way cheaper to maintain them. So when people think about EVs, they look at the tag, like the price tag, and say, oh, it's more expensive than the gas vehicle. But over the first 1 or 2 or 3 years maximum, like if you combine the fueling cost, the maintenance cost, your EV will become much cheaper than a gas vehicle, even at a higher price tag, like initial price tag. So way less maintenance, much more fun to drive, as you mentioned. Like the instant torque is amazing, and yeah, and I'm sure like over time we will have more service centers specifically like built and designed and trained for EVs in the future.
Yeah, and I can add a lot of the OEMs are now have ex making the expenditure and training to be able to do even battery repairs in-house. For example, there are four Kia dealerships in the out in the GTA, Greater Toronto area. I'm in Ontario, and they all have the capabilities, and that those capabilities are not only the training of the staff, but they need the tools. And when you're dealing with high voltage battery packs, it's a completely different ballgame. Your average mechanic can't really go into to there and touch and deal with anything in the battery pack or some of the high voltage components because of the risk of that entails. It's a very serious element to deal with, not like your 12 volt. So they need the training, they need all the tools, the PPE, personal protective equipment, they need all the gear, heavy lifts, all this kind of stuff. These battery packs can weigh thousands of pounds. So some of these dealers are now having the ability to drop that battery pack to do a diagnose and troubleshoot and do on-site repair versus having to drop it and ship it out, waiting a month or whatever for something to come back. So that's happening as we expand out as well. I would also add on a new car, again, I would strictly stick with the manufacturer because you're going to have that warranty. And if you take it to somebody else to do some beyond, brake work, let's say, or tires and that kind of stuff, but anything to do with the high voltage systems, you might be in jeopardy of avoiding that warranty or getting problems from the manufacturer. So a new vehicle, stay with the manufacturer. But things like brakes are brakes. And as Behzad was saying, I mean, the maintenance is very low. Brakes tend to last over 100,000 kilometers now because of regenerative braking and these elements. I can't guarantee that it would if you bought an EV, but the chances of it even lasting more than 100,000 are pretty good. I had a 2020 Model 3 that we sold in 4 years later with almost 100,000 kilometers. It was 98,000. We still had 60% of brake pad and disc life, rotor life on that. So again, as Bazad was mentioning, it's a phenomenal difference in a mind shift for maintenance on EVs. What we focus on now is, putting in windshield washer fluid and rotating the tires and, maybe changing the wiper blades. That's about it. There's really not much going on.
Right. But I guess it is, to Sherry's point, a consideration is to make sure when you're purchasing the vehicle is to,
Absolutely.
ask your dealer about those and kind of figure out, and that may help make your decision.
Yeah, dealers are
Uh,
going to want to steer you to them, obviously,
right.
because it's a revenue stream for them. But they realize that it's not as much revenue as the gas car, right? Because gas cars, you got to come in for your 10K oil changes, and there's all these other inspections and stuff that they'll try to steer you on. Whereas an EV, you don't really need a lot of that. Yeah, it's good to do some visuals once in a while, maybe once a year, have somebody look to make sure the suspension's okay and tire wear is good. But beyond that, again, it's pretty simple.
So, are there any other recommendations or considerations without, I guess, picking favorites in the market of what people should be thinking about, or how they might go into selecting a vehicle, and why they might want to choose an electric? We've talked a few things about it, but give us your thoughts.
Sure, yeah. So why people should consider electric vehicles? So the EV technology has been like the technology has matured significantly over the past 5 years. Like the battery technology now, we have much better batteries. We have the charging time. We have much faster charging systems right now. The battery durability has improved quite significantly. Now we have way more options now. Like maybe as Ken said, like a few years ago, we may had like maybe 10 different options. Now we have of any type of vehicle, we have an electric vehicle version of that. So we have different EV trucks, we have different SUVs, we even have minivans for EVs. So the options are there. The technology is finally there, so we can trust the technology. The ecosystem for the supply chain, for the charging network, it's being developed, and it's in a I don't say it's matured, but it's at a comfortable level. So we can easily find chargers like either level two in grocery store parking spots, like hotels, like apartment buildings, and fast chargers in highways, like they are available. So the ecosystem is there, and I guess it's time to take advantage. And then if we care about energy or environment, I don't say, okay, fuels or gases are not good. I just look at it from the energy efficiency point of view, is that gas vehicles, like the like energy input and the output that you get out of energy. So gas vehicles only turn 20 to 40% of the energy you put in them into moving energy. Electric vehicles, it's 90 to 95%, even more with more recent technology, turn the energy input into the work or into the rotating the tires. So way more energy efficient and again, fun to drive. Why not?
And great points. And I would just add, if you have the ability to charge, whether it be it at home, locally, or through a fast charger or a public station, then cost is the biggest motivator that I'm seeing most consumers are concerned about today. Obviously what's in the news, what's going on with gas prices. Gas price here probably changed while we were on this call already because they change multiple times a day. Electricity pricing is fairly firm. It stays for a while, especially if it's residential or fixed based, if you have workplace or some other elements. So you can kind of budget for that. You know what your rates are, and if you have that ability, it stays fixed. So your fuel costs are relatively straightforward. And then again, as we talked about, less maintenance, the energy costs typically, now I know that your electricity rates in Saskatchewan are a little higher than some of the other provinces, but I would encourage you to look at the math, to do some basic math and figure out, how much it would cost to charge an EV at if you have home or residence available at where you live to charge. It could just be a 110 wall plug, right? Trickle charging works for a lot of cases. If you're only doing 40, 50, 60 kilometers a day, something that gives you 5 to 10 kilometers an hour back could work for your daily use. You don't necessarily have to spend maybe on some additional hardware like a level 2 charger or something. If you don't have anything and you need to fast charge, if you live in an apartment or condo and don't have charging, then the experience, the habit would be the same as you do today. You go somewhere to get fuel, you go somewhere to get gas. So you would go somewhere if you have that availability to DC fast charge or to charge at some of the areas that Behzad mentioned that are out there. You might be able to take advantage of or a DC fast charger. And then again, look at what those some of those rates are to where local chargers are to you and do some comparisons. You'll find that home charging tends to be extremely cheap. It can be 10 cents a kilowatt here in Ontario. I forget what the starting rate is for you guys, Mitch, but if you looked at a 75 kilowatt hour battery pack or an 80 kilowatt hour battery pack, those are kind of average numbers. At 10 cents, it's $8, and that $8 will get you 400 kilometers. So that's kind of just instant way to figure it out. And then you know what you would spend on fuel. So that seems to be the number one driver that we're seeing from consumers. But then other things like convenience, as long as that 12-volt battery, because they do have 12-volt batteries, as long as it's charged, they turn on like that. There's no cold weather cranking that you have to worry about, especially in the colder northern climates. There's none of that cranking power the battery needs. It just turns on like a light switch. It turns on the computer of that EV, so it starts, basically turns on, and then with efficient heat pumps now, you get heat in 30 seconds or so, under a minute. They're very efficient. You get fast heat. You can precondition them in your garage. You don't have to worry about emissions because there is no emissions on all electrics. So you can do things like precondition them overnight. So in the morning, you leave at 7:30, the car's at 20 degrees, the battery's nice and warm, you've plugged it into your home, so you draw power there. So there are all these different ways to extend the advantages that EVs offer from a convenience factor as well. And then on safety side, I'll just interject that they are extremely safe vehicles. With that additional weight, they offer great handling and much more stronger safety cages for the protection of occupants, larger crumple zones, and all this kind of stuff to make them extremely safe vehicles.
Right. Thanks. Another question here from Sherry. Can you talk about all-wheel drive versus two-wheel drives for EV compared to gas cars? Do they handle the same? What options are out there available? I'll just note we've just got a couple minutes before we have to wrap things up. So if either of you, I guess, can talk about that. And maybe just too, out of curiosity, Kenneth, as as you speak to it, can you pull up your sheet, your spreadsheet here of all the models that are out there, just to give a bit of context for people here, and I'll
Yeah,
just
and I guess Kenneth is better versed and more qualified to talk about all-wheel drive versus front-wheel drive for
Sure.
EVs. He tested all
okay.
these vehicles, so
No
he has a
problem.
good first-hand experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I will add, I've been driving for over 40 years. I know I look so young, right? And I've never had an all-wheel drive vehicle until 4 years ago, 5 years ago. So I've either had rear-wheel drive or front-wheel drive. Now, we may not get the snow that you do in some of the in northern Saskatchewan, and some of the colder climates, but we do get a fair amount of snow. I used to live out in Southwest Ontario where we'd get a couple feet of snow. So, front-wheel drive is an advantage. Rear-wheel drive, you need to put some weight to help push that. Well, what an EV gives you is that weight is low and center in the vehicle, right? You could have a couple thousand pounds between the axles of those vehicles. That's low and center in the vehicle. So what that gives you for advantages in the winter is better handling because you have much better weight. It's not high weight, high centered weight like in a normal vehicle where the engine and the gas tank sit higher. These battery packs are low to the ground and make up the floor of the vehicle. So that's an immediate benefit in winter handling. You may or may not need then all-wheel drive. I can't speak to you would know your climate if if you live in a metropolitan area where the roads are plowed pretty consistently, you don't really go into 2 or 3 feet of snow a lot, then why spend extra money on a motor that will take some more power from you and cost more where you may not need it? So there are many front-wheel drive variants of EVs. You can see on my list here, they start from 38, 39,000, and I'll just scroll quickly up. It's a long list. You can see over 260 lines, and they go to 325,000 on some of the really top spec vehicles. But the bulk of vehicles are, under that 60,000 or 70,000 range. You can see 100 and some odd trims here. And we look at that 50,000 price point where we're starting to see some affordability. We have 30 or so models and trims available there, with some of these other models having incentives going right now to get them into that affordability bracket. So for winter handling, they're great. You still need good snow tires. So I don't underestimate the value of really good snow tires, but EVs are excellent at winter driving and performance.
Great. Thanks very much. If I
Mhm.
can steal back the slides here, we unfortunately, again, as always, are running quickly out of time here. So I'm just going to wrap things up. If there are any more questions, feel free to reach out to us after, and we will do our best to respond. Um, we already have our next episode planned. In this one, we are going to be talking about made in Canada EV chargers. Specifically, we'll be talking about three different companies. Teal EV, which is actually a Saskatoon-based company who does level 3 DC fast chargers. Fractal EV, based in Waterloo, Ontario, commercial level EV chargers for level 2s, and then Grizzly chargers, which I know are very popular in Saskatchewan, very robust chargers. A lot of people using them in residential applications, and they're out in Richmond Hill. So please make sure to sign up, and you can pre-register pretty soon on our website. So check that out. And then one other announcement. This weekend, on Saturday, May 30th, the Saskatchewan Electric Vehicle Association is hosting their Electrify Regina event. So if you're wanting to learn more about EVs and even have the opportunity to see some up close or take a test drive, a few different models, come out to that show. This is a free event, and you can even have a chance to win an e-bike. I will be there, and I'll be providing an update on our overall campaign here at Aurora Renewables, as well as talking about the development of a provincial charging network to help provide more freedom of electrified travel throughout Saskatchewan and across Canada. Um, Thank you both, Kenneth and Behzad, for your time and your expertise. Very greatly appreciated. Hope to see you both again soon. And thank you to the audience for joining. Again, be sure to watch our other episodes on our YouTube channel. But that, unfortunately, is all the time that we have for today. So thanks again for joining us. Hope to see you next time, and have a great rest of your day.